I was working the front desk at a hotel in Amsterdam when an American couple walked in around midnight. They had just flown in from Boston. The woman looked at me and said, "We need dinner reservations somewhere nice, like right now." I explained that most restaurants in the city close around 10 or 11 on weeknights. She stared at me like I had just told her the earth was flat. This is the kind of cultural storytelling I publish regularly, grounded in real experiences, and built for people who see the humor and the humanity in it. If that resonates, you'll want to stick around. "But we're hungry," she said, as if her appetite could reopen every kitchen in the Netherlands. Her husband jumped in. "In the States, you can get a full meal at 2 in the morning easy." "What kind of city is this?" I directed them to a late-night kebab shop 3 blocks away. They left looking genuinely offended that Amsterdam didn't operate on their schedule. My friend Maria works at a train station in Munich. She told me about the time an American tourist asked her which platform for the train to Paris. Maria told him platform 7, departing in 30 minutes. He looked confused. "Do I need to tip you for that information?" he asked, already reaching for his wallet. Maria politely declined. He insisted. "Come on, I know how it works. You guys depend on tips here." She explained again that Germany doesn't have a tipping culture for basic service information. He left a €5 note on her counter anyway and walked off like he had just done something generous. Maria donated it to charity later that day. Then there's my cousin who works at a cafe in Barcelona. An American woman ordered a coffee at 11 in the morning and asked for it to go. My cousin made the coffee in a paper cup. The woman looked at the cup size and said, "This is a small?" It was a standard European coffee, 8 ounces. She genuinely thought she had been scammed. In America, a small is at least 12 ounces. This is like a shot. My cousin explained that in Spain, people don't usually drink massive buckets of coffee. The woman ended up ordering 3 smalls and left confused about why anyone would want to drink coffee sitting down in a cafe instead of running somewhere with it. I used to work at a car rental place in Dublin. One summer afternoon, an American man returned his rental car visibly shaken. He said the GPS tried to kill him. I asked what happened. He explained that he kept ending up on the wrong side of the road, and other drivers were honking at him constantly. I asked if he realized we drive on the left in Ireland. Long silence. Then he said, "I thought that was just a suggestion for tourists." He was completely serious. He had spent 2 days driving on the right side of Irish roads, assuming everyone else was the confused one. Somehow, he survived without a single accident. These stories keep coming. And trust me, they only get better. I met a bartender in Prague who told me about an American tourist who asked him how long the drive to the Eiffel Tower was. The bartender said, "That's in Paris, different country." The tourist looked at his phone and said, "Yeah, but Europe is small, right? Can't be more than an hour." The bartender pulled up a map and showed him it was a 9-hour drive. The tourist was stunned. He had booked a hotel in Prague specifically because he thought he could visit 5 different countries in one weekend by car, like they were different states. He wasn't being entitled. He was just genuinely confused about how European geography works. I track stories like these across countries, cultures, and conversations, so if you value perspective over punchlines, this is a channel you'll want in your rotation. My roommate worked summers at a tourism office in Rome. She said the most common question she got from American visitors was whether they could see the Colosseum, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and Venice all in one afternoon. When she explained these places were hours apart, tourists would pull up Google Maps and argue with her. "Look, it's only 2 inches on my screen." She started keeping a printed map behind her desk just to show scale. Even then, some people thought she was exaggerating to sell them tour packages. A guy I know works at a museum in London. An American family came in and asked where the crown jewels were. He told them they were at the Tower of London, not the British Museum. The father got annoyed. "We were told everything important in London is in one place." The The guide asked who told them that. A blog, the father said. Turns out, they had read a listicle that grouped London attractions together and assumed it meant physical proximity. They had planned their entire day around the idea that Big Ben, the British Museum, and Buckingham Palace were all within a 5-minute walk of each other. I had a co-worker from Norway who once helped an American couple at Oslo's Central Station. They wanted to take a train to see the Northern Lights. My co-worker explained that the Northern Lights are only visible far north during specific months, and you can't just schedule them. The couple thought she was hiding information. "We saw a tour online," the woman said. It promised Northern Lights. My co-worker pulled up the tour page. It said clearly, "Possibility of viewing, weather dependent, winter season only." It was July. The couple still seemed to believe that if they paid enough, nature would perform on command. Then there's the story from my friend who worked at a hostel in Thailand. An American backpacker checked in and asked where he could mail a postcard to his girlfriend in New York. My friend pointed him to the post office 2 blocks away. The backpacker asked, "How long until it gets there?" My friend said about a week, maybe 10 days depending on customs. The backpacker was shocked. "A week? Can't you just overnight it?" My friend explained that international mail from Southeast Asia doesn't work like domestic shipping in the US. The backpacker kept insisting there had to be a faster option. "What if I pay extra?" he asked. My friend told him the fastest option was courier service, which would cost about $40 for a postcard. The backpacker thought it was highway robbery. He never sent the postcard. My sister studied abroad in Copenhagen. She said one of her American classmates showed up the first week asking why everyone biked so much. "Don't people have cars here?" she asked. The Danish students explained that biking is faster, cheaper, and healthier in a city designed for it. The American student said, "But what about when it rains?" They told her people just wear rain gear. She couldn't process it. In her mind, rain meant you needed a car. She eventually tried biking once, fell off in the first 10 minutes, and took the bus for the rest of the semester. There's also the border checkpoint story from my friend who worked between France and Switzerland. An American tourist crossed into Switzerland and got annoyed that his US dollars weren't accepted at a cafe. He argued with the cashier. The guy at my hotel in Paris said everyone takes dollars. The cashier explained Switzerland doesn't use euros either. "It's Swiss francs." The tourist was baffled. "How many currencies does Europe have?" When my friend told him there are multiple, he said, "That's so inconvenient." He had assumed the entire continent operated like the US, where you can drive coast to coast with the same currency. A flight attendant I know told me about an American passenger on a flight to Tokyo who asked when they would stop for gas. She thought he was joking. He wasn't. He genuinely didn't know planes don't stop mid-flight for refueling on long international routes. When she explained the plane had enough fuel for the entire journey, he seemed amazed. "So we're just flying for 14 hours straight?" She confirmed. He spent the rest of the flight visibly anxious, checking his watch every 30 minutes like the plane might run out of fuel. I worked at a grocery store in Germany during university. An American exchange student came in and started chatting loudly on his phone while waiting in line. The elderly German woman behind him tapped his shoulder and asked him politely to lower his voice. He pulled his phone away from his ear and said, "I'm on an important call." She didn't budge. She just stared at him. He eventually stepped out of line, finished his call outside, and came back invisibly frustrated. He told me at the register, "Why is everyone so uptight here?" I explained that talking loudly on the phone in public spaces is considered rude in Germany. He said, "That's so weird. Back home, nobody cares." My girlfriend worked at a restaurant in France. She told me about an American couple who finished their meal and left a 20% tip. Her manager saw it and actually ran outside to return the money, thinking they had made a mistake. The couple insisted it was intentional. "We always tip 20%, they said. The manager tried explaining that French servers are paid full wages, and tipping isn't expected the same way. The couple took the money back, but seemed offended that their gesture wasn't appreciated the way they thought it would be. A teacher friend of mine hosted an American exchange student in Finland. The student was shocked that people took off their shoes before entering homes, even at other people's houses? She asked. My friend explained it's standard across most of Finland and Scandinavia. The student said, "But what if your socks have holes?" My friend told her people just deal with it or bring slippers. The student wore her shoes inside for the first week, until my friend's mother directly asked her to remove them. She complied, but later posted on social media about how controlling European households were. She genuinely didn't understand it was about cleanliness and respect, not control. I have a cousin who worked at a library in Sweden. An American researcher visiting for a project answered his phone inside the reading room. The librarian walked over and gently reminded him that phones must be on silent and calls should be taken outside. He apologized, stepped out, and came back 5 minutes later. Then his phone rang again. He answered it. Again. The librarian returned, this time less gently. He said, "I'm waiting for an important email confirmation. I need my ringer on." She explained that wasn't how it worked. He reluctantly switched his phone to vibrate, but kept glancing at her like she was oppressing him. My roommate in college worked at a hostel in Amsterdam. She said American guests would constantly run the shower for 15 or 20 minutes at a time. The hostel manager had to put up signs reminding people about water conservation. One American guy read the sign and laughed. "It's water. It's unlimited." My roommate had to explain that even though the Netherlands has water, heating it costs money and energy, and long showers are culturally frowned upon. He still took 15-minute showers. When other hostel guests complained, he said, "I paid for this room. I'll use the water however I want." There's a story my friend told me about working at a university in Japan. An American professor visiting for a conference kept showing up late to meetings. After the third time, a Japanese colleague politely mentioned that punctuality is very important in Japanese culture. The American professor said, "I'm only 5 minutes late. That's basically on time." The colleague didn't push further, but my friend said the tension in the room was obvious. The professor never adjusted. He kept showing up 5 to 10 minutes late for the entire week, seemingly unaware that he was damaging his professional reputation. I knew someone who worked at a train station cafe in Switzerland. An American customer ordered a coffee and a croissant. When his order came up, he didn't immediately grab it. He was on his phone. The barista called his name twice. He finally looked up, annoyed, and said, "Can you just bring it to my table?" The barista explained they don't do table service. It's a self-service cafe. The customer muttered something about poor customer service and reluctantly came to pick up his order. Later, he left a 1-star review online saying the cafe staff were unfriendly and unhelpful. The staff were just following standard Swiss cafe protocol. A friend of mine worked at a park in Vienna. An American family set up a picnic on the grass and started blasting music from a Bluetooth speaker. Within 10 minutes, other park-goers were giving them annoyed looks. My friend approached them and politely asked them to lower the volume. The father said, "We're just having fun. It's a public park." My friend explained that Vienna parks have quiet enjoyment rules and loud music disturbs others. The father reluctantly turned it down but kept saying, "This would never be a problem back home." He wasn't wrong about that, but he also wasn't in America anymore. I worked at a hardware store in Canada. An American customer came in asking for a 2x4 that was exactly 8 feet long. I showed him the lumber section. He measured one of the boards with his tape measure and got confused. "This says 2.4 meters. That's not 8 feet." I explained that we label things in metric in Canada. He asked me to convert it for him. I told him 2.4 meters is about 7.8 feet, close enough to 8. He didn't believe me. He pulled out his phone, did the conversion himself, and then looked betrayed. "Why wouldn't you just use feet?" he asked. I told him Canada switched to metric decades ago. He bought the board, but left muttering about how complicated everything was. My friend worked at a pharmacy in the UK. An American tourist came in looking for Tylenol. My friend offered him paracetamol, which is the same thing. The tourist squinted at the box. "This says 500 milligrams. How much is that in normal measurements?" My friend said, "That is the normal measurement." The tourist insisted he needed it converted to something he understood. My friend tried explaining that milligrams are universal, but the tourist couldn't get past it. He ended up not buying anything because he didn't trust the dosage labeling. I knew a guy who worked at a gas station in Germany. An American driver pulled up in a rental car and asked to fill up the tank. He prepaid for 50 euros. When the pump stopped at 43 euros, he came back inside confused. "I paid for 50. Why did it stop?" My friend explained the tank was full. The driver said, "But I didn't get my full 50 euros worth." My friend walked him through how fuel pumps work. You pay up front, pump until the tank is full, and get the difference refunded. The driver still seemed to think he was being shortchanged somehow. He left without taking his €7 refund, convinced the system was rigged against him. There's a great story from a friend who worked at a clinic in Australia. An American patient came in with a fever. The nurse took his temperature and said it was 38 degrees. The patient panicked. 38? That's freezing! Am I dying? The nurse realized he thought she meant Fahrenheit. She explained Australia uses Celsius. 38 degrees Celsius is about 100.4 Fahrenheit, a mild fever. The patient calmed down but said, "You guys should really put up signs about that." My cousin worked at a bakery in France. An American customer wanted to buy half a kilo of bread. My cousin started weighing it. The customer stopped her. "Wait, how much is that in pounds?" My cousin said about 1.1 pounds. The customer paused. "So I'm paying for a pound but getting 0.1 extra free?" My cousin tried to explain that wasn't how it worked. The price is per kilo, not per pound. The customer took a long time to process this. Eventually, she bought the bread but kept saying, "This is so confusing." A friend of mine worked at a car rental in Ireland. An American customer complained that the fuel gauge was broken because it showed liters instead of gallons. My friend explained that Europe uses liters. The customer asked how he was supposed to know when to refuel. My friend said, "The same way you do in the States. When the needle gets low, you fill up." The customer didn't seem convinced. He kept checking the gauge nervously throughout his rental period, paranoid that he was reading it wrong. I worked at a shipping company in the Netherlands. An American expat came in to mail a package and got frustrated with the form. "Why does it ask for my postal code before my city?" he asked. I explained that's the standard European address format. He said, "In America, city comes first. This is backwards." I told him different countries have different systems. He filled out the form but kept muttering that it didn't make sense. His package arrived fine, but he never stopped complaining about the address format every time he came in. There's also the temperature story from a friend in Sweden. An American exchange student checked the weather app and saw it would be 15 degrees that day. She dressed in full winter gear, coat, and gloves. She walked outside and immediately started sweating. 15 degrees Celsius is about 59 Fahrenheit. Mild, not freezing. Her Swedish classmates had to explain the difference. She spent the rest of the semester double-checking every temperature forecast because she didn't trust herself to convert anymore. My roommate worked at a gym in Germany. An American member asked how much the dumbbells weighed. My roommate said 10 kilos. The American asked, "What's that in real weight?" My roommate said about 22 pounds. The American nodded but later complained to management that the weights weren't labeled properly. Management explained they were labeled in the standard metric system used across Europe. The American suggested they add pound labels for international visitors. Management politely declined. I was back at that hotel in Amsterdam a few months later. Different shift, same front desk. Another American guest checked in and asked me where the nearest Starbucks was. I told him there was one about 10 minutes away on foot. He asked if the hotel had a shuttle. I said no. He looked genuinely surprised. How do people get around here without cars? I pointed out the window at the tram stop across the street. He glanced at it like I had just shown him alien technology. I don't know how to use that, he said. I offered to explain. He waved me off. I'll just walk. 20 minutes later, he came back drenched in sweat, holding a Starbucks cup. He looked exhausted. That was way more than 10 minutes, he said. I asked if he got lost. He shook his head. No, I found it. But I had to walk past like 4 other coffee shops to get there. I asked why he didn't just stop at one of those. He said, I wanted something familiar. And there it was. The whole thing summed up in one sentence. I'm not sharing these stories to make fun of anyone. Honestly, I think they're kind of endearing. There's something almost brave about showing up in a foreign country and just assuming the world works the way you think it should. It doesn't mean Americans are bad travelers. It just means they're used to a certain way of life. And when that way doesn't translate, the confusion is real. My friend in Barcelona said it best. She told me that Americans abroad aren't trying to be difficult. They're just operating with main character energy in a world where there's suddenly side characters. And sometimes, watching that realization hit is the funniest thing you'll ever see. These stories keep happening. Every day, someone checks into a hotel expecting Denny's to be open at 3 in the morning. Someone gets confused by the metric system. Someone tips a train station worker. And honestly, the world keeps spinning. We all laugh about it later, including the Americans once they figure it out. If you've got your own story about Americans abroad, I'd love to hear it. These moments are everywhere. You just have to pay attention. And trust me, once you start noticing them, you can't stop. The best part? Most of these people eventually adapt. They learn to take off their shoes indoors. They figure out the metric system. They stop expecting 24-hour diners in cities that value sleep. This isn't just content. It's cultural context. And if navigating that space with nuance matters to you, you're in the right place. And when they do, they usually laugh at themselves harder than anyone else did. But until that moment hits, the confusion is absolutely gold.